Hello, everyone. On this podcast episode, I'm going to talk about wealth and also life as well, using duality. So, life and wealth, you know, are kind of similar in many ways. If you follow the laws of duality, life and death are equal and opposites, just like being rich, being wealthy, and being poor are equal and opposites. In this world, equal and opposites are, exist simultaneously as one. As in, someone who's rich is also poor, and someone who's alive is also dead. Someone who's alive is also not alive, and something that's not alive is also alive. So how does this work? Someone who's rich is only rich monetarily, right? There are different types of wealth in this world. Just because you have $1 billion does not mean you can buy anything. There are things in this world you can buy, and things in this world you can't buy. As a poor person, right? There are things in this world you can buy, you can afford, and there'll be things you can't afford. As a rich person, there'll be things in this world you can afford, and things in this world you can't afford. For example, if you only have $1 million, you can only afford to buy things that are worth $1 million. So you're both rich and poor at the same time. You're rich because you can afford to buy something that's $1 million. You're poor because you can't afford to buy something that's more than $1 million. Like a $30 million home, $30 million private jet. Even if you have $1 trillion in your bank account, there will still be things you can't afford. You can't buy the United States, no matter how rich you are. No matter how rich you are, you can't physically buy the United States. That's why you're poor. So although you are rich, you are still poor. There will always be things you can't afford, no matter how hard you try. It's just how life works. You're both rich and poor at the same time. There will be people you can afford, no matter how rich you are, right? You can pay someone to be a friend, your family member, or your girlfriend or your boyfriend. There are people in this world you can pay. There are services in this world you can, online services. You can literally hire friends. You can hire someone as a hug. There are professional huggers out there. People who you pay to come to your home and hug them. Yes, it sounds weird, but it exists. There are professional nannies out there, professional parents. You can hire them as your parents, and they'll come and pretend you're their child. You can, as long as you have money, you can buy a lot of weird things. You can buy a lot of weird services. And if you have money, you can, there are people who are willing to be your boyfriend or your girlfriend because you have money. As long as you keep giving them money, they'll continue pretending to be your boyfriend or girlfriend. And then there are people in this world you can't buy. There will always be people you can buy and people you can't buy. There are people in this world where no matter how much money you have, you just can't buy them. Whether they're rich or poor. There are poor folks right now that have way too much integrity and will never allow you to buy them, no matter how poor they are. Even when they're starving to death, they would rather starve to death than be bought by you like a slave. There are people like that. Not everyone can be bought with money. Not everyone cares about money. Not everyone sees money as valuable. I don't see money as valuable. Money has its value, yes, but there are things in this world that money can afford and things in this world that money can't afford. No matter how rich you are, money cannot make you happy. Money itself will never buy you happiness, because happiness is an emotion and money is a physical object. These are two different things. Physical objects can only buy other physical objects. The only thing that can influence your emotions are what? Your mindset. Your mindset influences your emotion. Your perspective in life influences your emotions. What you like will influence whether you're happy or not. If you don't like something, no matter how rich you are, you will still not like it. If you hate someone or you hate something, having more money would not make you like it. If you hate a certain amount of food, if you hate certain foods, right? You just hate them for no reason. Having a lot of money will not change your mind. Money does not influence emotions. Money does not influence your mind. That's why wealth and poverty are equal and opposites. They will always be equal because neither wealth nor poverty can truly influence your mind. The only thing that can influence your mind is your mindset, your personality, the things you like and the things you don't like. If you do the things you like, you will always be happy. If you do the things you don't like, you will always be miserable. If you hang around people that don't like you, that treat you badly, you will always be miserable, whether you have $1 million or not, whether you're extremely wealthy or not. If you're extremely wealthy and you hang around people that abuse you, that mock you, that insult you, that bully you, in so many ways, all day and all night, all they do is spend their lives bullying and mocking you on a daily basis. How would you be happy? Do you think all the money in your bank account will automatically make you happy? When someone insults you on a day-to-day basis, when someone threatens your life on a day-to-day basis, when someone just finds new ways to torture you alive with their words on a day-to-day basis, how much money will that bring you? How much happiness will that money bring you? That's how life works. Money can truly not influence your mind. Your experiences will influence your mind. Your personality influences your happiness. Your mindset influences your happiness. Your life's journey and everything you've experienced influences your happiness. Money itself will never do anything for you. If you don't like yourself when you're poor, you will still not like yourself when you're rich. Why? Because wealth is an illusion. That's why wealth and poverty are equal and opposites. If you didn't like yourself when you were poor, you still won't like yourself when you were rich. That's why they're equal. If you didn't like someone when you were poor, even after you become a multi-billionaire, you still won't like that person. If you hate something when you were poor, even when you become a multi-billionaire, you will still hate that thing. Wealth will never change your mind. If someone bullies you when you were poor, when you become rich, you will not automatically start to like that person who bullied you. You will still hate their guts, whether you're rich or poor. Poverty is an illusion. The things you like, you will always like, unless you change your mind in the future. And the things you hate, you will always hate, unless you change your mind in the future. You determine whether you like this life or not wealth. If you hated this world while you were poor, guess what? You will still hate this world while you're rich. Wealth means absolutely nothing. If you liked your family members when you were poor, you will still like your family members when you're rich. If you hated your family members when you were poor, you will still hate your family members when you're rich. Your emotions cannot be influenced by money. It's very hard to influence your emotions with money. The things you've always liked, you will still like them until you get tired of, experiencing them. And then you move on to something else that you like more. For example, the food you like to eat in the past. Sometimes, you eat so much of it and you get tired of it. And then you look for something else to eat. But that's your choice. Money cannot influence your choices. Money is an illusion. And stop thinking that somehow getting more money will automatically change your mind and will automatically change your life. You will still be the same person, whether you're rich or poor. Your emotions, your personality, your very character will still be exactly the same, whether you are rich or poor. The only thing that influences your mind, when you hear about people changing after they get rich, they never changed after they got rich. You finally seen them for who they truly are. When you're poor and helpless, it's easy to pretend you're happy with things you're not happy with. When you're poor and helpless, when you feel helpless in life, whether you're poor or rich, when you feel helpless in life, that's when you start to hide your emotions. You start to hide who you truly are. All the people who bullied you in the past, that you're too afraid to bully back. Once you get money, once you feel like you can run away from them, once you feel like you no longer have to deal with them on a daily basis, that's when you start to show them your true colors. You never liked them to begin with. You were only pretending to. And you were only pretending to because you felt like you have to. You felt like you had to pretend while you were poor. The moment you get wealth, you finally start to show them who you truly are. So no, the people who you see change when they get wealth never changed. You just never knew them for who they truly are. You never knew them for who they truly were. A person's personality is something they're born with. The things people like are usually, something they're born with. You can't make changes in your life, right? You can choose to tolerate certain things that you don't like. You can choose to pretend you like certain things that you don't like. But that's only temporary. And sooner or later, you start to realize there's a reason why you didn't like it. And when you start to realize, there's a reason why you didn't like it, that's when you start to show people your true character. That you've had enough. You're fed up with being bullied. You're fed up with being insulted. Now that you have wealth, now that you can leave them, you no longer want to tolerate the way they've been treating you in the past. So it's not that you've changed. It's that you can finally show them who you truly are. Life is just like that. Wealth cannot truly change someone. Why? Because if you follow the logic of duality, wealth and poverty are equal and opposites. And because they're equal, not much changes in life. Whether you're rich or poor, no matter how rich you are, you will still be poor. There will still be things you can't afford in this world. You think wealth means power, but you're wrong. Power is power, and wealth is wealth. People who have power, and people who are wealthy. They're not the same. There's a reason why they're two different words. They're not the same in any way, shape, or form, and they're not related in any way, shape, or form. There are wealthy people right now who have no power, none whatsoever. All they have is money. And not everyone in this world can be bought. Not everyone in this world can be bought. And that's why wealth can never be power. Why? Because there will always be people in this world you can't buy with money. There will always be things in this world you can't buy with money. There will always be people in this world who hated you when you were poor and who still hate you now that you're rich. If they hated you when you were poor, they will still hate you now that you're rich. They haven't changed, and they probably never will. If you don't treat someone well, they will never like you. Just a fact. No matter how rich you are, if you don't treat the people around you well, they will never like you. Wealth cannot influence their choices. Why? Because it's an emotional response. People react emotionally to when they're being abused, when they're being tortured, when they're being bullied, when they're being insulted. And these emotional responses are automatic. Hatred is an automatic experience. People don't think that, hey, you're rich, so I won't hate you. It doesn't cross their minds. That's not how the mind of a human being works. The human being does not say, hey, you're rich, so when you bullied me, it doesn't matter anymore. That's not how it works. If a rich person bullies you, it hurts just as much as when a poor person bullies you. If a rich person insults you, it hurts just as much as when a poor person insults you. There's no difference between the two. Your mind will still hate them whether they're rich or poor. You will still hate them whether they own the whole world or they have absolutely nothing. Wealth and poverty are equal and will always be equal in the eyes of this world. When everything is rich in this world, when everyone is rich, nobody will be rich. When everyone is poor, nobody will be poor. People, there are many people who always, who are always wishing that the richest person in this world gives all his wealth to everyone else, share his wealth equally to the rest of the world. Do you know what you're doing if you're wishing for that? You're not wishing for wealth. If everybody around you is wealthy, nobody will be wealthy. It's just a fact. If everybody around you is wealthy, then everyone around you is poor. If everybody around you is wealthy, everyone around you is poor. It's called inflation. When everyone is rich, nobody is. And it's called inflation. When you share your money to the rest of the world, you're creating inflation in your economy. You're not doing what you think you're doing. This is a world of duality. And when everything shares the same quality, nothing shares that quality. That's how this world works. When everyone is rich, nobody will be rich. Whether you want this world to be an equal world or not, the only reason why money has value is because it's scarce. The moment everyone has an equal amount of money, nobody will be rich. Why? Because nobody will value money any longer. Money will no longer have value because everybody has it. When everybody has money, it will no longer have value. Because the only reason why money has value is because it is scarce. Scarcity is the reason why money is valuable. So when everybody has the same amount of money, money will become worthless. Just like in Zimbabwe. You know how inflation works, right? The country prints out bunches and bunches of money. Just prints out money and gives it to the citizens. And now everyone in your country has billions of dollars. Yet they can't buy a single loaf of bread. They have billions of dollars just like in Zimbabwe. Yet they can't afford to buy a single piece of candy. A $1 piece of candy will not cost $1 billion. Why? Because everybody has $1 billion. When everybody has $1 billion, $1 billion becomes worthless. And everybody becomes poor again. When everybody is rich, nobody will be rich. When everybody is poor, nobody will be poor. That's why they're equal and opposites. The moment everybody becomes rich, it immediately flips and everybody becomes poor instead. Poverty and wealth are equal and opposites and always exist simultaneously as one. The extreme of one immediately becomes the other. The extreme of the other immediately becomes one. If you go too far to the left, you will always end up on your right. Isn't that how it is on earth? If you walk forward too fast or too far, you will end up back where you began. If you go too far to the left, you end up on the right. If you go too far to the future, you end up in the past. If you become too rich, you'll end up poor instead. Why? Because you'll have all this money and nothing to spend it on. When you own the world, you end up owning absolutely nothing. When you're rich enough to own the world and you buy everything in this world, the world will no longer belong to you. It'll belong to the people you bought. This is the duality of life. The extreme of one turns into the extreme of the other. So, that's the same thing with life and death. I talked about earlier about, trying to talk about life and death, trying to explain life and death. Life and death are equal and opposites, just like, wealth and poverty. And they function just the same way. The only reason why scientists cannot find life anywhere except on planet Earth is because when everything is dead, everything is alive. And when everything is alive, everything is dead. When the whole world is alive, nothing will appear to be alive. The reason why humans are alive is because of atoms. Atoms are the reason why we're alive, right? That automatically means atoms are alive. Why? Because the part can never be greater than the whole. If humans are alive, atoms are alive. Since atoms are alive, humans are alive. The only reason why humans are alive is because of atoms. So since the only reason why humans are alive is because of atoms, it means atoms are alive. Do you know why we don't consider atoms alive? It's because when everything is alive, nothing is alive. When every single atom in this world is alive, we will no longer consider them to be alive. We will need a whole new definition of life. Otherwise, it will no longer make any logical sense in our minds. It's because the whole world is alive. That's why nothing is alive except us. When the entire world is alive, nothing will be alive. And when the entire world is dead, nothing will be dead. That's how duality works. The only reason we know we're alive, humans, right, is because they're atoms. We can use atoms as a reference point. We're alive because we're not atoms, right? That's the mindset of many people. They say they're alive because they're not a rock. A rock does not move. Human beings move. A rock does not breathe. Human beings breathe. Since we behave differently from rocks, we are alive and rocks are dead. Only when there's something that's dead will you be considered alive. When if you remove all the atoms in this world and only humans, right? If humans were the only thing that existed in this world, we will no longer be considered alive. Why? How can we be alive when there's nothing else but us? When there's nothing else but human beings, can we really consider ourselves alive? Are we truly alive? No. We're only alive relative to something else. Relative to what? Relative to the earth. We're only alive relative to the earth because we behave differently from the planet Earth. The planet Earth is not considered alive, and we are. But the only reason why we're alive is because of this very planet Earth itself. This is how weird life and death works. It's not that nothing is alive. It's that everything is alive, including us. And when everything is alive, nothing is alive. That's how this world works. Atoms are alive. They have to be, because we're alive, and we're atoms. If we're atoms and we're alive, by default, atoms must be alive too. Why? The part can never be greater than the whole. We can't be more alive than atoms, because we are atoms. We can't be more logical than atoms because we are atoms. We can't be more intelligent than atoms because we are atoms. The only reason why we don't consider atoms alive is because atoms behave differently than us. We die, atoms don't die. We rarely ever see an atom die. The only time an atom can be destroyed, right, is when there's an anti-atom, an antimatter. Only when it's connected to an antimatter will it die. And because that's so rare in this world, from a human perspective, we will never see a rock die. Because we never see a rock die, we assume rocks aren't alive. When you never see something die, you automatically assume it is not alive. And atoms don't die. From our perspective, atoms don't die. Humans do. Life does. And if you can never die, you're never alive to begin with. If you can never die, then you're not considered alive. The only reason humans are considered alive is because we can die. We can turn back into the atoms that created us. Yet, these very atoms, the only reason why they're dead is because they were never dead to begin with. Every single one of them is alive. And because every single one of them is alive, nothing is alive. So it's not that the world doesn't have living things. It's that we don't consider atoms living things because they don't behave like we do. Atoms are a different form of life that does not behave like us. And because they do not behave like us, we will never consider them alive. Not because they're not alive, but because in order for us to be considered alive, there has to be something that's not alive. We must we must differentiate ourselves from atoms. Otherwise, nobody will be alive. Nothing will be alive. If we don't differentiate ourselves from atoms, then we'll never be considered alive. Why? Because when everything is alive, nothing is alive. So in order for us to be considered alive, we must what? Make atoms dead. For us humans to be considered alive, we must change the definition of life to only include us and not atoms. To only include cells and not atoms. Because once you include atoms into the equation, nobody will be alive from then on. We will all be inanimate objects or animated objects like robots. We'll be no different from robots. And nobody wants to be seen as a robot. When everything is alive, nothing will be alive. So the only reason why the whole world appears dead is because every single thing you see is alive. I know it's hard to comprehend, but it's a fact. When everything is tall, nothing will be tall. When everything is short, nothing will be short. When everything is small, nothing will be small. When everything is large, nothing will be large. When everyone is rich, nobody will be rich. When everyone is poor, nobody will be poor. When everything is alive, nothing will be alive. And when everything is dead, nothing will be dead. This world is one massive living being. That's why it appears separate from our point of view. The world is a world of duality. Separate and whole are two sides of the same coin. One and many are two sides of the same coin, and they exist simultaneously as one, just like life and death. An atom is both alive and dead. A human being is both alive and dead, just like an atom. A part of us is alive. A part of us was never alive to begin with. We don't consider atoms alive. That part of us is not alive, right? But yet we're still considered living beings. So we're both alive and dead. Our cells are considered alive, but the things that make up our cells, atoms, are not considered alive. So we're both alive and dead at the same time. And atoms are exactly just like us. They're all alive just like us. But because every single thing is alive, every single atom is alive, not a single one is alive. So an atom is just like us, both alive and not alive at the same time. Perspective determines whether an atom is alive, and perspective determines whether you are alive. Only from one perspective are you considered alive. From another perspective, you're nothing more than atoms. And if you say atoms aren't alive, then you were never alive to begin with. If you call atoms dead creatures, dead objects, guess what? You are made up of these atoms. That means by default, you were never alive to begin with. You're nothing more than a robot, a walking dead. But do you believe that? No. The only reason why you're not alive is because everything is alive, including those atoms. And when everything is alive, nothing is alive. When the whole world is alive, no one will be alive. Life no longer has value. We will need to have a new definition of life. Because without a new definition of life, no one will be considered alive. That's why scientists must what? Create a new definition of what a living being is. In order to differentiate us from non-living beings, we must create a new definition of what a living person is. That's the only reason why you're alive. You're only alive because of definition, because of perspective. Only from the perspective of science will you be considered alive. Why? Because the scientific definition of life does not include atoms, does not include the behavior of atoms. Because it does not include the behavior of atoms, atoms cannot be considered alive. So from one perspective, atoms aren't alive. From another perspective, they have always been alive to begin with, because they are us. They make up our bodies. And if we're alive, by default, they are alive. The part can never be greater than the whole. The part of something can never be greater than its entirety. We cannot be more intelligent than atoms because we are atoms. We cannot be more alive than atoms because we are atoms. Everything we know, every trait we have, every emotion we experience are the emotions of atoms. We cannot have more emotions than atoms because we are atoms. We cannot be more intelligent than atoms because we are atoms. This is a world governed by intelligence. And when everything is intelligent, nothing is. You're living inside the body of God. That's why everything is intelligent. That's why everything is one. Because when everything is one, nothing will be one. The only reason why the world appears separate, the only reason why you can be you and I can be me, is because everything is one to begin with. One and many are equal and opposites, and they exist simultaneously as one. They will always be one. Separation is an illusion created by one. Because God is one, God created all these separate things called atoms, cells, planets, galaxies, and the universe. Yet every single one of them is all connected as one being. That's why every single thing follows one, the same rules. The same laws that govern humans is the same laws of physics that governs the world around us. The laws of gravity that governs us governs the world as well. The laws of electromagnetism that governs the world around us governs us as well. The things that govern the world governs our bodies as well. Because everything is one. That's why the rules work for everyone. The rules work for everyone because everything is one to begin with. So that's it for today's podcast episode. I pray for everyone's safety and understanding. Amen.